Good evening. We'll call to order the Lakewood Planning Commission meeting, regular meeting at 7:02 on the 22nd of January, 2025. Mr. Medina, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Buckley?
Here.
Commissioner Furman?
Here.
Commissioner Grappolionis?
Here.
Commissioner Kolkmeyer?
Here.
Commissioner O'Neill?
Here.
Commissioner Overall?
Here.
Commissioner Peters?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We will move directly to item 3, which is PL 25-001, the Bend Urban Renewal Area Review and Recommendation. I'll just note for folks listening, reminder to commissioners and to folks in attendance today that this is an unusual matter that comes before us. We don't typically get asked to make a recommendation as it relates to compliance with the comprehensive plan on an urban renewal project, but it is pretty straightforward. The specific question that we'll be discussing today is whether or not the proposal that is presented is in compliance with the comprehensive plan already adopted in Lakewood. That's the current plan, not the next plan that is still in process. We will conduct the hearing in exactly the same way that we always do, inviting the applicant to make a presentation, asking if there's a staff recommendation, and then opening it up to any member of the public who would like to present testimony as well. This particular project is of interest, or I shouldn't say this particular project, I should say the property that this concerns is, has a number of issues and a number of processes that are taking place over time. Just a reminder that our focus as the Planning Commission by statute is to consider the specific question of compliance with the comprehensive plan. Following the public hearing, we will introduce a resolution or a motion on a resolution. Then, assuming that that's made and is seconded, we will discuss it and then consider approval or amendment or denial of that motion. And with that, I would ask our clerk to swear in anyone who's going to provide testimony this evening. So as we always do at the beginning of a public hearing, anyone who might make a comment today, I would ask you to stand, and Mr. Medina will swear or affirm your truth-telling.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we'll call the applicant forward to introduce yourself and give your presentation.
Let's see. There we go. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present. I am not the applicant, but representing them in terms of their proposal or application for an urban renewal plan to be created that would encompass their property. So I'm here presenting this. I really appreciate the introduction. It's better coming from you than us in terms of.
If you could actually, just for the record, tell us your name.
Say my name. Ann Ricker, principal and owner of Ricker Cunningham. Thank you. But I do appreciate the clarification. Having worked on many different kinds of plans, and that urban renewal plans, you're absolutely right, are somewhat different. And I've always thought it was kind of a injustice to say plan at the end, because you guys live in the world of plans and you're so involved whenever there's a community plan. But this is really almost more like a financing document. And so it's a strange role, but something I always emphasize right up front is that you continue to play the exact same critical role on any investment that happens in the area. This is just part of the process to get it in place, but any investment that comes in, our proposal for that will come before you, and you'll conduct all your regular evaluations and that. So this will go pretty quickly. I don't know how you usually like presenters, but I'm always happy to stop and answer or go back, but I'll just keep moving unless somebody stops me. This is just an overview of what I plan to present. These are just my credentials, I guess, so you know that I know what I'm talking about. I've been doing it for 35 years, specialized in urban renewal, testified before the state legislature, have lots of publications. I think over 100 urban renewal plans and, you know, different documents and that. So very familiar and always happy to answer questions. These are the, there's actually 2 parcels, which you probably picked up on in reading the plan, about 59 acres due west of the Federal Center, but formerly part of the area. You know, it's interesting, I'm a real estate economist, and when I go out there, I acknowledge the Federal Center, but I do think of this area as more an extension of the Union Boulevard, the business area, and how things are, you're seeing more of a mix of uses, and I think, you know, this is really an extension of that in that it's proposing a mix of uses, residential and ultimately some commercial. Some of the major features, and these are the things we really just call out. This is the beginning of us trying to respond to what your questions are going to be in terms of, is this consistent with the existing community plan? And so the first place we start is we go to the existing comprehensive plan and any other sub-area plans or special plans in that area. We take excerpts directly out, so you don't have to try and figure out, well, they said this, but is that really what we wanted? So we use the same terms that are used in the comprehensive plan, part of the Union Boulevard corridor, as you all have recognized it. Denver Federal Center campus, again, an extension of that, not the heart of it. St. Anthony Medical Campus, obviously, as I said, all the western sub-area office space and commercial that's there. And really recognizing, because there was, you know, in your last comprehensive plan, I think even more so in the one that's coming, because we were able to review some of the preliminary information, that emphasis on residential at transit stations, this sits right next to that and really accomplished a lot of the goals you had laid out, not only in the comprehensive plan, but obviously in your zoning. The components of the plan, and this kind of, I think, highlights some of what I was saying earlier in terms of, it's called a plan, but it's very much a financing document. So, you know, the standard introduction definitions, but it needs to state the plan intentions. And the urban renewal statute in Colorado is very clear. You know, each area, when you create an urban renewal area, there's uniqueness about it because it depends on the conditions that are there, what the project is that's being proposed, but also just being in the context of a community, and there's where the nuances are. But in the statute, number 1 and number 2, in terms of intentions of any urban renewal plan, number 1 is mitigate or eliminate conditions of blight as defined by the statute. Number 2 is to advance the goals and vision of a community as expressed in their policy documents. So that's right up there at the beginning, and that's where I like to see the link between urban renewal and community planning. We state here that, and sometimes this is a nuance that sometimes gets lost on people, but the document, the urban renewal plan, it's technically prepared for the authority, the urban renewal authority. In your case, it's the Lakewood Reinvestment Authority, but also the city, but the authority is the administrator of the plan. But I always say in partnership, like I said, you guys will continue to review every project that comes through there. But the authority will be providing that financing. Council will have roles in terms of perhaps signing off on any revenue sharing agreements or things like that. But, you know, the authority tends to rise to the surface once things get in place, and really they're the ones who are expected to implement the plan and see urban renewal projects through. Recognizing your zoning, I really love how you guys did your zoning. Just had to put in a little plug for that because not every community has it set up like this. And yours is very usable and understandable about what your intentions are. And as I mentioned earlier, the zoning for this area is the transit, and everything that's being proposed here is absolutely in line with that. As explained in the act, and when we say the act, we also mean the urban renewal statute. Again, the first objectives are always to eliminate the conditions of blight or conditions of blight or adverse conditions, and to advance the plan or the goals and vision of the community. But also, in your plans, you talk about rehabilitation, you talk about infill, appropriately so. You don't have a lot of remaining large areas, with the exception of, Rooney Valley and things like that. You have an appropriate emphasis on infill and redevelopment. Again, this would fit that bill. Also, completing capital improvements, knowing that the community's been around for a while. You have aging infrastructure as any community, and again, this is an obvious tool to see that that can happen without obviously raising taxes and that. So it can be a very useful resource in that way, and particularly for communities like yourselves where there, almost a disproportionate amount of emphasis needs to be spent on considerations of infill and redevelopment. We again cite your existing. I was curious. I honestly don't know how close you are to the next one in terms of adoption, but we continue to cite the existing one that's in place. That's what the statute requires. We talk about livability. That, as I know, continues to be a theme in your coming one, but also mobility, innovation, sustainability. So what we've done is we tried to pull out those specific key elements of the existing plan and then link those back to what is being proposed by the property owner. And then we wanted to emphasize here, I'm going to go back one if it's okay. On the bottom, you'll notice, and this has come out of conversations, as we understand it, with staff, perhaps, elected and appointed officials too, and definitely conversations that they've had with the other taxing entities, that the affordable housing element and making sure there's a component of that in the project there's a good amount of emphasis that's been put into that. And I just wanted to make sure you knew that that was coming from the input that the property owner was getting from different sources, and it was embraced, and it absolutely is reflected in what they're proposing. We cite here Lakewood Innovates Chapter 5 because we felt that was really the one that most closely talked about the things that you wanted to accomplish, not only in this area, but this kind of a property and its surroundings. And obviously the reference to the campus area of the Federal Center and Union Boulevard. So you identify those key markers on your map, and you talk about how you envision those areas. So we've pulled those out here. And then next, we just pulled out a few of the key goals, very specific to this area. So we didn't try, sometimes we'll give you pages and pages and pages of goals that, we would recommend to you that this will accomplish, but you've been so thoughtful about different areas of the community and what you want to happen there and how you want to leverage the rail and that this is just exactly in line. So we tried not to inundate you with all kinds of pages of that. And then, I think that was more a continuation. And then these were some of the objectives, and this is just to highlight this for you. In addition to the ones we talked about in terms of curing blight or eliminating it and advancing goals, the other kind of key part of an urban renewal plan, as I mentioned, it's really a financing document. It's laying out without specificity that you want to put this tool in place, that you recognize what the city wants to do in this area, that it'll be a challenge, otherwise it would have already happened, right? That's the financial obstacle, and that there's conditions in that area that come at a price, and that's where the partnership is really born. And so the plan talks about, again, I always say without specificity, because an urban renewal plan lasts as long as the TIF lasts, and in Colorado that's 25 years, and as a real estate economist, I'll tell you that's maybe 2 real estate cycles, at least in Colorado, maybe a little more. And I think some of the failure in past years, when some urban renewal plans were done, is they got so specific that the plan didn't last the 25 years. It was irrelevant because conditions changed and markets changed and that. So we try and allow for, good judgment by the people, the boards and commissions that'll be there overseeing some of the implementation. So it's finding that sweet spot. And then again, this is just a clarification of those roles, but you did a great job explaining that at the front. And this is the last slide. And I think the only thing I would say here is tentatively. This was kind of the goal originally, but these things are always in flux until the end, and especially because, back in, I think it was 2016, with the passage of House Bill 1348, I'm fortunate that all the urban renewal authorities I worked on always had a lot of dialogue back and forth with the taxing entities, but that didn't always consistently happen, so they memorialized it in House Bill 1348, and those discussions continue to happen with staff and the representatives from the taxing entities, making sure everybody's whole and then some. So if we can hit those deadlines, that'll be the schedule. If not, might slide a little bit. But we're real close. And these are just slides I threw up at the end, more informational for you all. We don't have to present those. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Richter. And we'll open it up for questions from commissioners. Commissioner Buckley.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you for your presentation, Ms. Ricker. You mentioned at one point that an affordable housing element for what ultimately gets developed in this urban renewal authority has been embraced by the backers of the project. Can you go into a little bit more specificity of what mechanisms that are in the plan specifically will accommodate that and ensure that, and what it looks like?
Yeah, if it's okay with you, am I the right person to answer that, or do you want to have a representative from the development team? Sure. And that's okay with you guys?
That is certainly okay.
Yeah, it's certainly fine with me.
Okay. Better to get the right answer.
Absolutely.
And please just feel free to introduce yourself. And
Yeah, I'm Allie Meister. I'm with Lincoln Property. I'm here with Scott Caldwell as well, so we may go back and forth or defer. We'll move around. So as part of this, we've been working really since we purchased the property in 2013 with the city, but I think in the last year, we've started some pretty strong coordination with staff on putting together our program and working through this urban plan. And with that, it's very clear that affordability is a priority for the city, and that's driving some of our priorities in creating this plan ultimately and getting infrastructure funding. So we are planning to go to council or to a public hearing. Right now, it's targeted for the end of February, and like Ann said, I think we still have some things to hit to get there. And with that, there'll be, my understanding is there'll be resolutions that go with our land use, and that would capture any affordability. And then negotiation with the taxing entities. The county has has also an interest in affordability and making sure that there's affordable housing here. So there's going to be some documentation in our IGA, in our intergovernmental agreement on affordability.
Okay. So yeah, just to reiterate that, to make sure I'm understanding correctly, the resolution that you'll be asking council to adopt and the intergovernmental agreement that comes after that will both somehow document and memorialize a component of affordable housing.
Yes, and it will be a defined amount of it.
Okay.
Correct.
Can you provide any more specificity at this time of what that might be?
Yeah, and so this is a phased development. Ultimately, it's substantial housing, mixed use, which is multifamily, and ground floor retail. So we have 2,000 units at full build out, and then we have over 100,000 square feet of retail. And as you can imagine, that's over a couple years. I think right now we show it as 7-phase developments that come out of the ground, and our target is to do a 10% on unit count affordability, which would be 200 units.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then, of course, the affordable housing, maybe we'll call it with like a capital A, where it's dedicated based on some percentage of area median income is great and very important, right? But then there's the rest of the housing, maybe called market rate housing. Hopefully in a good plan, in a well-functioning market, like that's, at least attainable or affordable to a broad number of people, even if it's not the people who need the subsidized rate. So, that doesn't get talked about as much with the capital A affordable housing, but talk about the other 90% of the housing and what that's going to look like.
Yeah. We're excited. I mean, we're very excited about development at this project. What we view this as is multifamily, and so it's apartment units right now, no any for sale. It would be 5-story product, and we're really honed in on making a vibrant community, and we've been working with staff, also looking at the zoning code on these mixed use and trans-oriented communities, and so it's going to be highly amenitized. There's going to be retail that people who live there, or really the community, can come to. It's going to both obviously have private amenities because frankly, that's what market is today, is to be amenitized. But also there's going to be public plazas that connect to RTD and the station and connect to retail, and that's accessible. And we're talking about some public recreation or public benefit piece as well.
Okay, thank you. That's
Yeah.
that answered those questions. I have one more question that might be for Ms. Ricker. Okay. If you could talk just maybe briefly about the conditions of blight and the process by which the urban renewal area, once established, will go about removing those conditions and making something better.
Yeah, thanks for asking about that, because I know that it tends to be a bit of a mystery for people, and why wouldn't it be? Why would anybody know exactly everything about this? One thing I especially with properties like this, that I want to start with is that I think sometimes people have the notion that there has to be a structure on a site to find a condition of blight. Interestingly, of the 11 factors of blight in the Colorado statute, 9 of them have nothing to do with whether there's a building. There's only 2 that even reference a structure, and that's okay. And the reason is that there are so many other conditions that are in either the infrastructure that's serving the property, whether it's old, aging, undersized, if that would be a big issue here, and really, because I actually happen to work on the original master plan for the Federal Center, the environmental issues limit not only the uses that can happen there, but also, they greatly affect the site plan too. There's limits there, and that all translates into money. And when you want to accomplish things like community goals, like affordable housing, and you have to overcome these extraordinary circumstances, that's why things don't get built, right? So it's just filling in that gap there, which is how urban renewal is supposed to be used. There's also, given the size of the site, a couple of things you would expect. And what we tried to do with the survey is, not pretend that, for instance, factor B and factor C have to do with access and internal access, and that, well, it's a vacant site, right? Why would anybody build roads? I guess they used to do that, and then they go broke, right? But we don't do that anymore. And so, it's an obvious factor, but we recognize it. But if you read the condition survey, which is separate from this process, but if you do what we did, and I know city councils thanked us for this in the past, is we say it's present, as per the statute, but it's not the biggest impact. We're just acknowledging it, but we're not hanging our hat on it to say that's why this qualifies. The biggest things were really the dangers associated with the environmental. There's some limiting conditions on infrastructure. Interestingly, horribly, again, with the fires that we had up in Louisville and that, and now, that you're seeing in other states, I mean, the issue, how the building codes are going to be changed and making sure we have the appropriate protections are all absolutely worth it, but come at a huge price. So it's helping projects like this do it right, but recognizing that kind of the first few in are going to spend more and trying to kind of level the playing field a little bit. But yeah, in this area, it was all about, it just stemmed from the environmental, and then it kind of splintered from there with some other conditions that qualified but were less impactful.
All right, yeah, thanks for that background.
Yeah.
No questions from me anymore, Chair.
Thank you, and I very much appreciate that because your report indicated that you found, 9 of 11,
Yeah.
Which is a significant number. Just remind us, in a circumstance under the statute where the city were envisioning condemnation, which is not the
Yes.
case
Right.
here,
Right.
it would have required 5.
Correct.
And in this case,
There were
4.
9. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and that's thank you again. I never know how much anybody knows or how detailed you want to get, but the statute does require that there be a minimum, by general standards, 4. And, if you even have 100 parcels, you don't have to have them, you don't have to find it on every parcel. But, that's why you're judicious about how you create your boundaries when you do the survey and that. But 4 at a minimum, 5 if you knowingly intend, and that can be a voluntary friendly condemnation, they're not all bad, or the kind that, people don't like as much, then it raises the bar. But that's why I'd like to include it, but say it's less impactful. Because sometimes I've found that if you just are super, super conservative and you hit that 5 or 6 and they're like, well, that's too close. And it's like, well, the other ones were there. I just, didn't. So, that's kind of been our practice. So thank you for, calling that out.
And it does, knowing the site, as hopefully everybody does, it is not hard to find examples of how you get to those numbers based upon such obvious things as the lacking the infrastructure, and then I can only imagine how expensive the remediation might be.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, the question before us is, of course, compliance with the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plans have lots of different provisions, and sometimes we get in the circumstance of competing provisions. Is there, in your judgment and analysis, is there anything in our comprehensive plan that would be inconsistent with this proposal in your view?
I can't believe you're going to ask me this. I'm going to tell you the truth because I
think you're required to.
I'm in the last chapter of my career in that, but because I literally read it from cover to cover, and if I do 10, urban renewal plans in Lakewood, I'll start from the beginning and read to the end again. That's just how I do it. And the one thing that concerns me, it might concern me more in some of the draft language I saw in the new, and that could change, so that's always the caveat, is that there's a lot of talk about livability, but then we jump to neighborhoods, and the focus becomes pretty quickly on single family. And yet there's affordable. And you, Commissioner Buckley, made a great point, which is that, you said 90%. I don't know that it is 90%, but the missing middle that they call the workforce housing, that's that. When they talk about affordable, we're not talking Section 8. We're talking about the people that still can't even make the rent, and they've got college degrees or whatever. And so it's that group. And I can't speak for the developer, but I imagine that's what they're talking about, and there's desperate need for it, and there aren't resources. You have to use resources like this. So that's the only, thank you so much for asking, but I would love to hear your discussions when you start reviewing the new one, because it's like you're putting your toe in the water. We know we need affordable housing. We know that it's a state level priority, and we want to maintain our communities, absolutely, and beautiful neighborhoods and all that, but they can coexist. And it's, I always like to say that whatever your vision is should be your north arrow, and it should be reflected in your budget and your incentives and your plans and everything. Everything should line up. It's not, you can't just talk about it and then not back it up. And so there's a departure in some of the things I've seen where it's like you start to go there and then they've kind of pulled back a little bit, even to eliminate the term single family and just say housing, and then let the debate be about real projects. But it feels like there's a jumping off point too early.
Well said. Thank you. Are there any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Peters.
Hi, thank you. You had mentioned the affordability, and I was wondering how the cost of mitigation, because I know that there's a lot of concerns about very costly remediation there. And is there the potential to, kind of overrun the budget because of that?
So, yeah, that's a really interesting question. I can tell you, having been an advisor or consultant to developers, especially when they're coming in for urban renewal financing, that participation, that they'll come in with I would say, a fairly detailed budget that will try and be in the ballpark. Now, you guys probably know this, that right up until the day they break ground, things are going to move, because they do, interest rates, all of that stuff, costs. But they need to be pretty in the ballpark so that they're capturing the order of magnitude. There won't be surprises. And I guess the good thing about when you get into a public-private partnership like this is it forces that level of specificity, because the role of the authority is to assist them with what they need, but no more, right? It's not to, let's just write a check. That's not what it's about at all. It's about filling that gap. It is gap financing, and it's knowing that they can't put it over, they can't get to the finish line without it, and so you're assembling those. So it really does, in my experience, it forces them to have a pretty darn good handle on the magnitude of what those costs are. So they eliminate a lot of that uncertainty just in the process of coming in and requesting. Because if I'm advising the Urban Renewal Authority, and which we do, we get those pro formas. We review them and say, they're overstating their costs, they're understating their revenue. We need to talk about that to make sure the number, again, hits kind of that sweet spot. So I think it's less of a concern in public-private partnerships for that reason, that you're going to have this big surprise and it's going to go over. It'll be significant, though, I can tell you that, a portion.
And the assessments have determined that up to this
Yes.
point. That's already been
Yep.
understood
Yeah,
and
and
assessed.
those studies, yeah.
And that's part of what is going into the blight determination.
Absolutely, that there's been a phase one and, and an additional study, and I'm not sure if there'll need to be more, but it's possible. I think another safety net for you guys is that you've always got the banks, right? And if they come into an urban, to talk to the Urban Renewal Authority, and they say, we've got this gap, and we would like to ask you to reimburse the money that we're going to generate. That's how TIF comes back. It's money that's invested. It comes back to them. To be able to do that up front, you either have to issue bonds or you go to the bank and you borrow in advance, right? Mm-hmm. The bank advances that and it gets paid back from the taxes. And so the bank's going to look at it like, are we safe here? I mean, they're all of a sudden now a partner in the project just like you are. So they have their whole process of making sure there's no surprises too. So there's so many layers that I always say you eliminate as much uncertainty as possible in that process. And I guess that's why, never to give money away if a project doesn't need it. But I love public-private partnerships because, like I said, I think it eliminates the possibility, it just makes everybody sharpen their pencils a little more. And again, then you have to, you want to be able to go out and tell your constituents that, it needed this, and we did this, and we did no more than that, and this is what we were able to yield from that.
And is that a factor? You had mentioned there were limiting conditions on infrastructure. Was that related to the remediation, or was that due to something else? Can you
It's more
speak to
about
that?
It's more about the roads, and
Okay.
that's something I've found in other work that I've done in Lakewood. And again, it's just surely the age of the community. I mean, yeah, you got to pick and choose what you spend money on. You know, and like even in Wheat Ridge, where we work too, and gosh, I mean, I can't tell you how often I've driven through that intersection at 38th and Wadsworth, you know, back when it was a car dealership, and it just looks so good now, but I'm like, it took 20 years to get the money to make those improvements. I mean, I totally get it. And so, you know, we acknowledge it in the condition survey, not to like berate the public works person or anything, but to say, these conditions are such that they're not just, you know, felt. The adverse impacts aren't just felt in the road with accidents and that, but it's felt like by the businesses beyond the street. And if it's not safe and people can't park and all that, real estate's worth less, and you know that trickles to the city having revenue and all those things. So it was more about roads and making sure the capacity's there and fire flow, and again that gets into the fire districts and that. But it's kind of trying to pick up in this big umbrella, you know, where's money going to have to be spent? And the difference with urban renewal and why it will qualify or not is you're saying, what are extraordinary circumstances here given the conditions that somebody wouldn't have to deal with somewhere else? Because otherwise they'll just go somewhere else and then conditions just get worse.
And then just a final question. I was looking over the Lakewood Reinvestment Authority and particularly their budget and their projects, and most of them are focused on commercial predominantly. And then I also read the point where there's zeroing out the tax base, and I'm trying to understand both of these
Yep.
things. One, this is a 2,000 unit, you know, but we're typically for the Lakewood Reinvestment Authority is more commercial versus the mixed, and then that tax unit going to zero,
Okay.
and how that's going to impact the city and the
Yeah.
finances.
Thank you for asking that, because that is actually like one of those horrible myths out there. I want to make sure I answer both questions. Hang on. So it's the zero and it's the housing. And you're absolutely right, because income producing properties in Colorado are taxed at a higher rate than residential.
Right.
Technically, and I'm really sorry if I start going on a tangent and everybody's like, you know, their heads start to hurt. Technically, apartments are income producing property. Technically, they should be taxed at the same rate as office and industrial. Now, that is not always the practice, but it's up to the assessor. And I hate to say that, and I'm sorry, but it's the God's truth. So it can become a negotiation of, you know, and you might say, well, if I'm a property owner, why would I want to pay the higher tax? Well, if you're in a situation like this, it might be worth it. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying that's what these guys are going to do, but there might be a circumstance where it's better to pay more so there's more coming back. That's not always the case, but I can tell you that it is done differently by different assessors. So I just like to keep in my head that apartments are technically income producing properties. Therefore, unlike single family detached or something like that, it will generate a certain amount more revenue than kind of traditional or, you know, that kind of housing. There is also a retail component to this too. And we all know, I always say it takes 9 months for the first retail tenant to move in after the housing's completely full. That's just the way it is. So we love our mixed use and we love our ground floor retail, but for God's sake, don't expect any revenue to come out of that for 9 months, at least, right? It's just how it goes. But it will eventually, but it's tough. Is it worth it? Yeah, some communities think it is. Some locations it is. So there's both components here. And I guess I would just encourage you to look at them as both income producing because of the apartments. The zero question is really excellent because it's really not zero. And that's really the thing that I think there's not been enough education. That's what's gotten urban renewal a bad name, because they'll say, what about school districts? What about the library and all that? It's actually a step. So it doesn't, they used to say it freezes the base. So it'd be like, we set it on this date, it's frozen, and it stays the same. It's not what happens. Every other year when the assessor goes out, every other year we get our tax bill and all that, they make an adjustment. The base goes up with the adjustment. And all the taxing entities realize that upward adjustment. The only thing that they're not capturing is the net new taxes paid by new investment. That's the only thing that they're not getting. I'm not saying that's not a good amount of money, because this project wouldn't happen if it wasn't a certain amount of money, because they have all these extraordinary expenses. But they continue to be taken care of, at least in that way. And then these discussions that staff is having with those taxing entities, that's the additional. That's saying, what might your expenses be because of this growth that wouldn't be addressed in that step up? And that's the share back. And, I can just, without boring you guys, but I can tell you some amazing things have come from either the share back or, we've used it to build fire stations. Up in, what's up on 36 corridor, the big business park up there. They put up like the Omni Hotel in that, and at the time there were no fire engines that could have put out a fire at that height. And so urban renewal money was used to buy the fire engine, because why have a building that tall if you don't have fire engine, right? So, you can use it to wire schools. You can, so the discussion should be good and thoughtful and anticipate, when this growth happens, what might those impacts be? That's what this period of discussion is supposed to be about. And then that making them whole and then some.
And is this something that the city council will be considering
Yeah.
in the how that fits in with the comprehensive plan and the base as well?
That's kind of interesting about the comprehensive plan. I would almost say you guys will. And again, that's where we get to that weird area where you continue to play that really important role, but yet this is how it's laid out in the urban renewal statute. But council, as part of the urban renewal plan, all of those agreements will be part of that plan. So they will be able to see that, and that's important, and that's available to the public too. In terms of the link to the comp plan, that's my soapbox, I guess, is how do we best align the resources the community has to advance what you say is your vision and in the comp plan. Like, if affordable housing is, and I believe you that it is, it simply won't be done by the private sector. If you had a piece of land you could do market rate or affordable, which would you do? So, there's value in it, but not everybody can be benevolent. And so, it's saying, well, let's get special financing and let's get a little bit from here and a little bit from there. And there's ways, obviously, to piece it together. But having the link between urban renewal and the new comp plan and, I guess, I don't know. I would love, and the budget and all of those things, I expect you guys will play a critical role in that.
So that's part of our process this evening in that?
No. Going forward, I think,
the
when the
future.
comp plan comes to you, when the new update comes to you, it's. I love that we got to be before you, before that, because not everybody thinks about it like you are, about those connections. And maybe it'll give you an additional perspective when you're reviewing that, because that's got to be huge time-consuming effort on your all's part, because you're kind of in charge of it. But, yeah. That it'll kind of be, I don't know how much you can affect, but wouldn't it be nice? There's always statements in comp plans. You've got it in your current one that says we need to use urban renewal for these things. So there's an acknowledgement, but maybe sweetening up the language a little bit, it'll be a priority. I don't know, something like that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.
Mr. Rice, is there a recommendation from staff on this proposal?
Right. This recommendation from staff is that the Planning Commission recommend to City Council that the bend at Lakewood Urban Renewal is in conformance with the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. And there are materials, obviously, on Lakewood Speaks regarding that. Do commissioners have any questions for staff? Commissioner Buckley.
Thank you, Chairman. My request to speak button is not lighting up tonight, so.
I disabled it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you noticed my hand. Yeah, a question for staff. Some numbers that Ms. Ricker mentioned. Approximately 2,000 units of housing, more or less, on 59 acres. Just doing quick math, very simple division. It's about 34 units per acre. I think, and this is where I would like some interpretation from staff, there's an interplay here with the very complicated transit-oriented communities bill that the state legislature passed last year, which establishes a housing opportunity goal for the whole city based on a quota of 40 units per acre within a certain distance of transit, which I forget what we are, but I presume this whole site is within it because it's right next to and surrounded by the rail tracks, right next to the light rail station. So there's this housing opportunity goal that's established by 40 units per acre in all of the transit-oriented areas in the community. And right now we have 0 units per acre, like on this particular site, because we see what it is. It's vacant and blighted. And so I don't know, a proposal that is putting in a density that's less than that, is that enough? Like where are we with meeting that mandatory goal, and how does this help us or not?
Interesting question. One of the things, so we're looking at this to make sure that we're compliant with the state mandate, and one of the things we found is there is an error. We actually have a lot of area in Lakewood that's designated for transit, and there is no transit there. So we've conveyed that to the state. We haven't. They said work through it, right? We haven't effected a change, and so one of the I'm not answering your question directly. One of the areas that we're targeting right now is the transit corridor between Kipling and Wadsworth. And what's kind of interesting, if you look at the zoning on each end of the corridor at Kipling and Wadsworth, there's probably the zoning in place to accommodate future growth to meet the state mandate. Then if you go through the corridor, it's educational experience. You kind of see it when you're working, but not all the time. There's a big underground water facility or tank there, right? So that comes out. There are several water ponds, storage ponds there. So there's lots of things that start coming out of those corridors. We did a quick calc. We're refining some things. We have most of the zoning in place to accommodate the growth that we need. This particular project, with the other projects that already have occurred on the Union Corridor, at 34 units an acre, it will calc out. And the other thing is they've mentioned 2,000 units. They could do more. So that's kind of what they're targeting at this point in time. If properties were to change hands, you may see a different residential type. So this is kind of phase one in a 25-year project. So.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you very much. We now will invite any comments, testimony from any member of the public. I will note there were a couple of comments on Lakewood Speaks. I will also say that I keep having difficulty logging in, so I promise you I am reading every single comment, but it's not always logging that the commissioners are reviewing those. But for the public, we are all obligated, I think, to read those, and we are. Is there anyone who would like to present any additional testimony regarding this matter before the commission? I don't believe we had anyone sign in, and it appears we don't have anyone in the room who would like to provide testimony. So we'll close the public testimony portion of the hearing, and we'll go to a motion. I will just note that the staff has prepared for us a draft resolution, and I would entertain a motion and second on that, and then we can discuss how we feel about that and whether we would want to have any amendments on it. Is there a motion?
I move that the Planning Commission adopt the draft motion provided in the packet by staff.
Thank you, Commissioner Buckley. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Furman seconds. Discussion. Commissioner Buckley.
All right, thank you. The comprehensive plan contains a lot of statements. Sometimes it contains magnitudes, as we alluded to earlier. I think that some of the statements in the comprehensive plan and the amendments to the plan too. We have particular plans referenced in the packet for tonight's material for the Union corridor and area that all very clearly envision a mixed-use transit-oriented development on the space that's currently a blighted land, and I think the details provided in our packet demonstrate, I think, amply meets the state statutory requirements for blight conditions that justifies the existence of this authority. So, in short, I think the need for the urban renewal district seems clear to me to implement the objectives of developing this parcel of land, which is a particularly challenging place to build anything, in a way that's consistent with the comprehensive plan and these sub-area plans that's been adopted. It's pretty straightforward to me in that way. So I'll be voting in favor of the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner. If there are no other comments, I would just echo that. I think that this is a very clear-cut case. If I were to suggest any amendments, it would be to just add additional detail about the places where this does fit quite squarely with what our comprehensive plan is calling for generally and in this specific location. So on that question, I am prepared to vote yes as well. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Medina, would you call the, oh, I'm sorry. We don't have to do that. We've got buttons. So I will open the voting, and the question before us is whether to approve the resolution in our packet and made publicly available, recommending to the City Council that this proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
My buttons aren't working.
Actually, Commissioner Buckley, I have you. I do not have Commissioner Furman or Commissioner Grebliunas. Well, let me display the votes, and then we will supplement. Not every member has voted. I don't think they're going to let me do that, so I will read it for the record. Or actually, let's go ahead and do a roll call.
I got word that the voting machine is being updated, so we can do a roll call. It'll just be aye or nay, starting with Commissioner Buckley.
Aye.
Commissioner Furman.
Aye.
Commissioner Grebliunas.
Aye.
Commissioner Kolkmeyer.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Aye.
Commissioner Overall.
Aye.
Commissioner Peters.
Aye.
All right, motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much. That passes unanimously. We very much appreciate your presentation and wish you good luck in the project. That completes item number 3. Item number 4 is general business. I don't have anything under general business, but I'd ask Mr. Rice if he has anything that he would like to mention to the commission.
Yes, I would like to talk with the commission a little bit about upcoming calendar. So in February, we have the comprehensive plan discussion, informational meeting, the 19th of February. So that's your next meeting. Then we are looking at public hearings possibly on March 5th and March 19th, if you'll keep your calendars open. Those have nothing to do with the comp plan. They're two development cases that would be coming to the commission. And then I want to just kind of go out a little further since we have some tentative dates. And then April, your 2 dates would be, again, comp plan, zoning ordinance process. So we're looking at public hearings on, hold on, I've got to get to the next month. The 2nd and 16th of April. So then next public business would probably be in May. So you won't see anything. We don't have anything calendared at this point in time, but that would be your next meeting. And then we have in March election of officers. So we can either incorporate that in on the 5th as part of the process. If they, no, is it March or
It's
April?
April.
April, excuse me. Thank you. They're appointed in March, they're seated in April, thank you. And then we would do election of officers April 2nd if you want to keep that date. So that's calendar-wise. We don't have anything special, so they'll all be regular meeting dates at this point in time.
I will simply note that we have had it easy for quite some time over the last couple of months, as many projects have been pushed, but we are entering a far busier phase, especially with the zoning rewrite and the comprehensive plan. I have requested, and it's my understanding staff concurs, that we will actually have 3 meetings talking about the comprehensive plan. One is a study session on April 19th, but then we will have 2 public hearings inviting public comment, April 2nd and April 16th. And of course, anything that is being proposed as a potential change to that comprehensive plan will be publicly discussed and available on those dates. That is all I have. Commissioner Buckley.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to note that I very likely have a conflict on March 19th. We'll be out of town. So, yeah, for whatever that consideration is worth with scheduling a case that day, I personally would prefer if we could not.
Very well. Anything else?
Commissioner Buckley, was that March 19th?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it was.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all. It was a relatively quick meeting. We will adjourn at 7:58.
Thank you.